It's time to talk about the Barebones trainer. I know everyone noticed it in those other videos that I did. Also posted it on Instagram, had a bunch of people asking about it. So here it is. Here's the BRS or Blade Runner Systems Barebones trainer. First off, this is the box that it comes in, like all the other BRS stuff. Like the artwork on the back. Practice makes perfect. Pretty cool. But yeah, pretty simple packaging here. These are some extras that were sent along with the knife. I didn't buy this knife. This was sent to me so that I can try it out. So these are sold separate if you're interested. This is what they call the inbox. This is the 2.0 version, which is actually pretty cool. It's kind of like a little EDC box. There's compartments here you can put whatever you want in. Although if you are a flipper, you might want to throw in some spare O-rings, maybe some screws, Loctite or whatever. Whatever's going to fit in there would be good to have. But the coolest part is the bottom. There is a little tray that pulls out, and there's your Band-Aids. However, you're not going to need them for this one because this one is a trainer and it is not sharpened. But if you're buying this, you probably already have a couple other ones. So it's a cool little thing to have, as well as a decal, which is one of the cooler decals out there. See, it's a playing card. Of course, with the Balisongs there and skeletons, also very cool. I think they sell these for like $1.99. So I'm going to talk about this knife specifically right now, but later in the video I'm going to have a general discussion about Balisong trainers versus live blades and my personal opinions on the whole thing. So let's jump into the specs. 9.8 inches for the overall length. All right, closed is 5.6 inches. Stainless steel for our handles and hardware. All right, and then our blade is 4.5 inches. And this again, not sharpened here, but it is, and get ready for it, a properly heat-treated 154 cm, okay? Which they certainly did not have to do on this particular style of knife. When you're talking about a training knife, there's no performance. All it has to do is not break when it hits the floor, okay? But that's why they went with a 154 cm, is so that it will have that longevity, because it is a hard steel. This could have been a 300 series stainless steel. It would have been a lot cheaper to make that blade, but that's not where they wanted to go with this. They wanted to have it a high quality knife, even though you're not actually cutting anything with it. You don't have to worry about edge retention or anything like that. They still went with the same blade they would have if it was actually ground and sharpened, which I think is really cool. Still very high quality. All right. As far as the pins here, you can see this is set up with Zen pins. I talked about this in a previous Balisong video. All right, but this little notch here, this goes in between both of these pins that are inside the handle. That's what creates your gap. You need this gap in between the handles so that when you are putting your latch down, it creates pressure, okay? So the latch doesn't quite get there. You have to squeeze this together a little bit, and that's what holds the latch, so it will stay open, all right? And vice versa, when this is closed, you can see the cups here, all right? Those wrap around those pins on either side, and again, creates the same gap, okay? So you have to actually pinch this together, and it's kind of putting pressure outward so it does not allow that latch to come, you know, flying out or anything. All right, so you have this effect here when you want to open it. You could squeeze the handles together, you know, first, and then kind of push that forward, and it's a little easier. Most people don't. You just kind of pop it open, just like that. And you take a look at the handles here. You can see the hardware. This is a sandwich style Balisong, so we have two handle scales. All right, and then there is a spacer here, which again is what those two screws are holding in on both sides. Okay, so we have an open frame. All right, and the hardware is Torx, so this is completely disassemble friendly. If you want to take this apart to clean it, you can certainly do so. All right, which is nice. I always prefer screw Balisongs as opposed to anything pinned. If you have rivets or pins, you can't take it apart. And also, if they ever loosen up, you have to hammer them, they weaken, it's just a problem. Any kind of Balisong that has hardware as opposed to pins will generally last longer. In this particular case, it's a high quality hardware. All right, so you don't have to worry about this thing falling apart or anything, and you can adjust it and tighten it if need be. This is with some flipping. You can still see there's a perfect amount of play in this. There's just enough wiggle back and forth. Okay, so you have nice smooth flipping, but it is not loose by any means. Okay, this is as far as I can separate these handles. And again, you want the inside of the top here to line up with the inside of the bottom at its farthest point. Okay, and vice versa. The inside of this one with the inside of the top one there. All right, so it's very good blade play this here, let's just call it. You do need a little bit of play in your Balisongs, but more times than not, the cheap ones, they get really loose and floppy, and then you get all kinds of problems. Now, I thought it was pretty cool about this one, and it's on a couple different Balisong models out there, but I do like the fact that this has a rounded spine. Your hands and fingers come in contact with the spine of the blade in a lot of different manipulations, from rollovers to ricochets. And every time it does, you know, when you have a squared off spine on the blade, it just becomes that much more uncomfortable. So having this rounded off and super smooth like this just adds to the flipping experience, basically. It's way more comfortable to use this than a lot of different models. Now, if you look at the design overall, you can see there's tons of skeletonization, tons of different patterns cut out and stuff, or lightning holes. And by lightning, I don't mean like thunder and lightning, I mean lightening, you know, making it less heavy. So they serve two functions in both cases. On the handle, not only does this remove metal, okay, so it is physically lighter because this is stainless steel. And again, going with a sandwich design also lightens it up a little bit as opposed to, say, milled handles or something, but also facilitates just a little bit of grip. Okay, all the edges on the inside here, you can feel. Okay, so when you're manipulating this and it starts to slip a little bit, those are actual edges that you can grab, because you can see the outside edges of the handles are also angled. I don't know if you could tell. If I give you a shot like this, you can see that. Okay, so this is cut on an angle here, on there, you know, all four corners on each handle. So there's 8 cuts made out. That also helps too if you're doing any kind of rotating in the hand or spinning. It's going to slide or glide around inside the hand with less friction because it is angled. As far as the blade, these lightning holes here, they serve two purposes. Number one, you can physically see it's a trainer, just visually. Pretty much every trainer that I know of has some kind of lightning holes in the blade, but also because you're not actually removing metal by grinding it down and sharpening it, you got to remove metal somehow, right? So you put these little patterns in the blade. You know, it just kind of looks nice, but the main purpose there, or function, is to take that weight away. If I didn't already mention it, this comes in at 5.1 ounces, which I think is pretty balanced. It's really nice to flip. It's extremely smooth overall. But the 5.1 ounces, I think, is a pretty good sweet spot. Anywhere from 4 to 5 is like where I want to be as far as flipping. Like 5.5 to 6 ounces, it becomes too heavy for me. It's really abuses my hand when I'm doing ricochets. You know what I mean? It's that extra weight, that extra inertia just beats up on my knuckles and my fingers and stuff. But on the flip side of things, I don't want it to be, no pun intended there, I don't want it to be too light, because then I don't get the momentum that I need. 4.2 ounces seems to be perfect. That just so happens to be the Benjamin Model 42, which everyone always looks for and everyone loves. Coming in at 5.1, it's on the higher end of where I like to be, but still extremely balanced, and it is a good weight. You know, it's got some heft to it, but it doesn't feel heavy, if that makes sense to you. So, I mean, yeah, this trainer is extremely high quality, just like all the other Blade Runner system stuff that I've tried out before. And they didn't cut any corners. They literally made a fantastic Balisong. All they did was, you know, drill some holes or cut out some holes in the blade as opposed to sharpening it. So now I'm at the end of the video. I want to have a quick little general discussion about trainers. Not just this one specifically, but all training Balisongs. I very much are for them, and I very much think they have a big purpose for, you know, the flipping community and just people who want to play with Balisongs in general. Number one, youth. I think it's awesome when kids want to get into flipping Balisongs. I mean, obviously it's something, you know, a parent has to agree with, because you don't get to make those decisions yourself yet. You are a child. But I think it's awesome they can do that in a safe manner. Clearly, most people are not going to trust or like the idea of their young child flipping a knife or playing with a knife. So that's where trainers really shine, you know, is with youth. And when I say youth, I'm not just talking about 9 and 10-year-olds. I'm still talking about, you know, anyone up to 17 years old. If you are not a legal adult, right, your parents get to decide, you know, what you can do, essentially. So, yeah, I agree with that, 100%. Number two, I think trainers are awesome, again, as I mentioned before, for people with professions that you just cannot afford to get any kind of cuts on your hands or fingers, whether you're a musician, I don't know, maybe you're putting little things together at work all day. And if you have a cut in your pointer finger, you know, that messes up your whole day. In that case, yeah, a trainer is where it's at. You can have a lot of fun in a safe manner. And lastly, I think trainers are huge when you want to get into some of the more difficult moves, you know, when you're past the beginner stuff, you know, and you get into some of the intermediate stuff and you're starting to master that, and you want to get into like some of the really crazy stuff, and especially like some aerials and some different combinations. It really shines, because I don't care who you are, how good you are, when you try a new move, you're going to get cut. If you're using a sharp edge, you don't know what you're doing yet, you might have an idea of what to do, but it takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of repetition. Okay, for some people, they can do a move 3 or 4 times and kind of get the hang of it. For other people, it takes them 300 or 400 times before they get a hang of that move. So I think that even if you are pretty proficient with a Balisong, with a sharp edge, and you know, there's certain moves you could do it over and over again, and you're not going to mess up anymore because you know those moves, inevitably you're going to want to try a new move. And when you do that new move, you will get cut. And I've been there. I've been in a situation where I'm trying something new and I get cut once or twice, and then I'm like, all right, and I break out the trainer. You know what I mean? And then I go to town with it, I get a feel for it, okay, then I go back to the live blade. The inherent problem with that is that if you use a trainer that's much different, let's say it's a lot lighter or a lot heavier than your live blade, if you use that trainer too much, then you get used to that feel. And then when you transition back to that live edge, it's a totally different feel. It may be physically different in how the handle's shaped, the length of the handle, the weight of the knife, there's a lot of variables there. Okay, so I think a little bit of practice with the trainer is good if you are flipping or transitioning from, you know, a dull to sharp blade. That's good, but you generally want to get a trainer that's close to the real deal, so it's the same feel. And obviously the best case scenario is when you have a trainer that's literally the same weight or the same model, it just happens to be, you know, a dull version of it. And I know so many people out there who buy cheap Balisongs and just dull the edges, and you could do that too, but cheap Balisongs fall apart. That's why I do recommend, if you want to get into this hobby and if you've used a cheap Balisong and you liked it, but it broke, don't just buy another cheap one. Save up your money and get a nice high quality Balisong so you can enjoy the hobby, you know, for many years to come, and not just for a couple weeks until your thing breaks again, you know? So yes, I am 100% for trainers. No, I don't think you should spend a lot of time on a trainer if you are continuously transitioning to a live blade. You know, try a new move, try it until you get comfortable with it, then transition as quickly as possible to that live edge so you don't get sloppy. Because I do feel like people who only flip trainers most of the time, and then, like, you know, let's say you want to show off to your friend or something, you know, you grab a sharp Balisong and uh-oh, you just cut yourself. Why? Because you're flipping a little bit sloppy. Not to say everyone does that, but it's just something I see over and over again. You know what I mean? But if you're just in this to have some fun, this is where it's at, right here. Get a trainer, have some fun. You never have to transition to a live blade. You don't have to if you don't want to. But they definitely have their place, and I'm glad to see that BRS finally came out with their own. They make very nice Balisongs, and I think this one will be a lot more popular, believe it or not, in my opinion, than even some of their other awesome Balisongs, just because of the fact that so many people out there want to flip a Balisong, but they want to do it safely. So anyway, that is all. I absolutely love the Barebones trainer, but I am a fan of all trainers out there. This just happens to be a very high quality one at a reasonable price. The $200 price tag is reasonable for what you're actually getting here. Okay, so I'm a fan of it. So that's it. Post your comments down below as you guys get these things. Let me know what you think of yours, but I am absolutely loving this one. So I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you guys soon. Take care.